so much for tuning in to the very first episode of the Dreams in Motion podcast. This is something I've been wanting to do for several years now, and I'm so happy that I'm finally pushing myself to go ahead and get it started. On today's episode, we have a very, very special guest. I've been following her for some time. I hope you learned something from her. I hope you're inspired by her. And overall, I hope you enjoy the podcast. Please stay tuned with us. Stay in touch. Ask questions. I need y'all to be as interactive as possible. A year from now, we're going to come back to this very first video of how this all began. And hopefully, there'll be a story to be told. Thank you so much. Enjoy the video.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Like I said, today we have CEO of Ajim Capital, Eunice Ajim. Eunice, thank you so much for being on today. This is my very first official. I'm jumping out and making this real. So this is exciting for me, and I'm really happy that you're the first guest that we have on this podcast. Starting right off, as a serial entrepreneur myself, I find your story very inspiring. Transcending the founder side of things to becoming an investor on the investor side of startups. For those that are not familiar with your story, can you please share some background on the origination of your success and your experiences as a founder?
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on the podcast today. I'm always honored by other fellow Africans, and a little bit background about myself. I'm originally from Cameroon. I've been in the US for 10 years now. Came to the US as an international student.
Wow.
Went through the regular route, graduated college in May of 2016. And for any immigrant that is in the US, you know our reality, right? I had to get a regular job. So my first job was at Apple doing analytics for them. And very soon realized that it was not for me. And I hated corporate America. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur at heart, right? From when I was a baby or like a kid in Cameroon, I remember when everybody will, have their pocket money and go to school and then eat it. I was the one that would go to the market and I'll buy, like biscuits and candies, and then I'll buy it in bulk. I'll go and I'll resell it and then make more money. So when I moved to the US again, I had to figure out my way paying for education, so I had my little hustles on the side. So when I had to get a regular job, I just knew that there's no way I'm going to become successful and live my American dream, by climbing the ladder of corporate America. And that works out for a lot of people. I just knew that was not going to be my reality. So I left Apple and started my first tech company. That company was called DataGig. DataGig was an online marketplace connecting SMEs with data science experts. And the reason why I got into that field was because the Airbnbs and the Ubers, the marketplaces of the world was booming in early 2017.
100%.
And AI, machine learning, was also the sexy thing. So I was like, I understand the background. I see marketplaces are amazing. I'm going to launch a tech company and I'm going to be a millionaire.
Man, that's how it works. You got to be crazy enough to believe that you're going to be everything you say you're going to be. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so that didn't happen. I actually ended up struggling a lot, just putting the company. The first year, I actually became homeless for a little while. In the US, I had a car note, my car got repossessed, right? And it was a crazy ride, right? But eventually, I guess, like I like to tell people, I'll put my suit on, right? And I'll put a happy face and I'll show up every single time.
100%.
Eventually grew that company to a little bit over 30,000 in monthly recurring revenue.
Nice.
Started fundraising. Again, got a lot of no's from investors. I think, I understand that reality of, why is nobody believing in me? Eventually, I came across an investor that understood the idea, he understood the business model and said, instead of focusing on data science, why don't we take that business model and apply it for open source services as a whole? That was really a life-changing opportunity for me because I went from being nobody to like working with a successful, investor in my industry. The second company, eventually we raised about $680,000 in pre-seed. During the first year, By the second year, we brought in a few more full-time employees and then grew that company to a little bit of a 10 million in MRR.
Yes, ma'am.
Raised another seed round, a $3 million round. And then, we're right on track to about doubling that transaction in volume by the third year. And everybody keep asking me, like, why did you leave if the company was getting so successful? And I told him that the only reason I became an entrepreneur in the first place was to figure out a way how I could translate my American dream into an African dream. So seeing how much experience, operator experience as a startup founder I got from running that startup, I said, I want to give back. I want to get involved in the African ecosystem. Started, just reaching out to random people on LinkedIn and saying, hey, how's the startup going? Getting plugged into that community, started angel investing from different syndicate groups, and decided, you know what, from listening to these founders, I can tell that it's a big problem at early stage financing for African startups. So in September of 2021, I said, you know what, I'm going to exit my company early and I'll go full-time launching a VC firm. And here we are.
That's amazing. And that brings me to my next question. Your firm, Ajim Capital, is only investing in, I don't think you're necessarily investing in only African companies, but necessarily African companies, companies serving Africa. Why Africa, and what is your vision for the future of Africa?
Yeah, so we are an African-focused VC firm, so we only invest in African founders. To be quite frank, my preference is African founders on the African continent, but I've also seen very amazing success, like, from Africans in the diaspora that are serving the African market. So those are the two targeted, because if you're serving the African market, you're technically still an African company. Why Africa? Because Africa has so much potential. We're one of the fastest growing, population and GDP, across the world. We have the youngest populations of just like entrepreneurs and people, creating businesses. And one of the biggest challenge that I have seen is that despite all the amazing talent, right, despite the fact that a lot of African countries are now becoming digitized, there's still a huge lack of capital in early stage financing. If you think raising money in the US is difficult, multiply that by 100, right? That's how difficult it can be for Africans on the continent to raise money. But things are getting better, right? We've seen a lot more interest of VCs. I mean, even last year, over 5 billion almost 5 billion in financing going to startup founders, raising money on the continent. But my analysis is, if you look closely, a lot of those deals were Series B, Series C, Series D deals, so like bigger checks. The smaller checks is still a small proportion of that money.
Wow, thank you for that. That's pretty amazing, because Africa is a country. I mean, being Nigerian in America and trying to build a startup and raise capital, I've seen how difficult it is. Like, can't even imagine how difficult it is for founders in Africa to try to raise funds. But I appreciate you for what you're doing. That's amazing. My next question is, it's kind of on the other side of that statement. I think a lot of companies and startups are overcapitalized. I read this one book by the Shark Draymond, and he talked about how sometimes too much funding can sometimes kill the vision or just make you complacent as a founder and almost be counterproductive. What's your advice to budding entrepreneurs who are struggling with the idea that they can't get their idea off the ground without raising money?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think, again, I'm actually biased against, the hype around, founders that go out and raise millions of dollars, pre-product, pre-revenue or pre-anything, right? They just have an idea, but because they have a good network of like, people with money or like really good relationships they can raise. I actually, again, I have gone a different route myself, right? I think you don't always need to raise money to grow your idea. And there are so many other funding options now available to us that does not include VC. In my opinion, and again, right, like, who am I? I personally think that when you're just getting started,
That's right.
Figure out exactly like what is the problem that you're trying to solve. Is it a problem that you've had personally, right? That you're trying to like put it out to the wall, and then find who is the right customer for this. Like if you can find people that, even if your product does not exist, right? Like if you just have people that says, yes, this is a pain, and if you can solve this problem, I'm willing to pay you X amount of money to get it solved. You have an idea. I'll take a quick example. I invested in a company called Payday. During my previous company, I hired, again, with my passion for trying to help the African continent. I want to make sure that people see us differently. I convinced my co-founders that our engineering team, let's hire our whole engineering team in Africa. Right. But for a start, it was painful because, first of all, where do I find them? Right. We had to go and find communities, like maybe like GitHub communities that had, Africans around them. We had to like scrape. It was a challenge for me to find the right talent. First of all, to hire. I invested in a company called Talent QL that solved that problem for me. Right. They launched a company that is, focused on finding the best African tech talents and then putting them on the job globally with Africans and globally. So they fixed that problem. And I saw that they had a problem, so I invested in them, right? Because I know I've experienced that myself. The second problem that I had when hiring African talents was, in Nigeria, for example, there's a lot, again, because of the scammings and all the things that have happened in the past, a lot of banks don't allow you to wire money online directly to Nigeria. And even when they do, it takes anything between 5 to 10 business days for the money
for verification purposes. Yeah.
It was a pain in the, for me to like pay my employees, and it wasn't a good experience for them. Payday solves that problem. I mean, I now, as a VC, working with African companies, I have, most of my employees are in the continent, and it's automated, it's quick. I put in my credit card information, it sends them, they get a notification right away, right? Like Payday solves that problem. So again, like if you find a problem that you're willing to again, it was a pain for me, I'm a customer, and I invest in it. And I think that a lot of problems that we face, if you can find the customers without even a product, and somebody's like, yes, I have that problem. If you fix it for me, I will give you the money. Find as many people that will be willing to give you the money if you fix that problem for them, and then build the product. In fact, I've even seen, situations where customers, I'm willing to give you $500 or $1,000 as like a prepayment just for you to fix this problem for me.
So that brings me to my next question, because that's very important. I feel like a lot of founders, they start out with a business plan. And I think one of the reasons a lot of companies fail is because they start out as a business plan rather than a solution. And what a lot of, especially first-time founders, I made that mistake when I first started my first startup many years ago. What first-time founders focused on, they don't even think about who's my customer and who cares. They're focused on, or I was focused on at the same time back in the day, features, and let me add this feature, let me do this. And you're so focused on the product that you don't even realize everything I'm doing, who cares about this, because you don't have a company until you have a customer. So would you agree with that statement? Find your customer, find what your customer needs before you even go out and just, build an MVP. Yeah, build an MVP, right? But don't try to build a skyscraper before you even find out if somebody wants to live in that high rise, correct? Would you agree?
I totally agree. I mean, I'm a scrappy entrepreneur, and what I mean, and what I mean by that is like a lot of the times I launch things when I don't have anything. I'll take a quick example. Again, I'm a serial entrepreneur. Not all my businesses are online, but like I have an e-commerce business, right? When I decided that I wanted to launch this e-commerce business, I was like, I don't want to spend $10,000 in building, the inventory for this business, and like I can't sell it later. So what I did, and again, as a scrappy entrepreneur, I found the products online, took a screenshot of the picture, right? And again, this business is targeted towards Africans, like everything is manufactured in Africa. But I said, I'm not going to spend a lot of money and build things and like nobody buys. So what I did was took pictures online that I think look very similar to the things that I wanted to sell. and I posted something like 20 pictures of them and run a lot of marketing, social media ads, right? Like try to like get as many followers. The day I got my first sale is the day that I went and actually built the product and then shipped it to the customer. And I didn't go and buy and like, manufacture 100 of them. I did one. And then I got my next sale, and then I did my second one. By the time I started getting a lot more sales, then I started building a little bit in bulk because, people like this one, and I think a lot of people would have.
Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead. I'm so sorry.
No, I'm just saying that a lot of people would have gone and manufactured and like maybe, you have a market, but what you like might not be what everybody else is willing to buy. And that's how I see things.
And what you like from what you just said, it's easier to pivot. Like you said, you find out what people like, and it's easier to pivot. Like, whoa, like, okay, you can, because as an entrepreneur, as a founder of a startup, you need to be able to pivot. Like Amazon started off selling books. See where he is today. If he went out and built like a huge library or something, it might have altered, he started off just selling books from home. And a lot of people that I advise or I talk to and counsel on startups, I always tell them, stop. Like I've had a young man who wants to start a clothing business because he's seen another person do it. And I said, don't go ordering $2,000 worth of inventory. Order something small, like one piece each, take pictures and see if people want it. Do a pre-order.
Even just find the pictures online. I mean,
100%.
A lot of things that we build today is nothing new. Find pictures online, create your own website, market it, make a sale. We do understand your first few customers might be angry because it took you 5 to 7 weeks to ship the product, but at least you know that they paid for it and they're willing to, compared to like spending $5,000 and realizing that nobody wants to buy. I'll say take that money, spend on marketing, get sales, take the money from the sales, go buy the products. 100%. Or like go manufacture the products.
100%.
But again, I'm a scrappy entrepreneur. That's the way I'll do it. Somebody might have a completely different opinion about it.
No, I agree 100% with what you're saying. I have this one more question, right? You and I don't look like the traditional tech founders. Often VCs or even bigger firms are looking for the Zuckerbergs or the Harvard or Stanford dropouts. How did you navigate that startup ecosystem as a Black woman? And what advice would you have to young female entrepreneurs who are looking up to you? Because you're a pillar now and people really see your story, how you transcended. They see it as something inspirational. So what advice would you give to young Black female entrepreneurs who want to do what you've done, who want to accomplish somewhat of what you've accomplished?
Yeah, so I used to think that way too. A lot. I was like, oh my God, Eunice, like you're young. And again, like when I was starting my entrepreneurial career, I was 22, right? 21, 22, so super young. I was like, well, like, and I've had those thoughts, right? Like where, maybe I'm not getting any funding because, I'm Black and I'm a woman and I have this strong African accent, right? Where people immediately say, is this woman going to be serious? But the thing that I felt like I was always underestimated until I showed those people what I was capable of every single time. For me, I think it's not because those VCs or those investors are looking for the Mark Zuckerberg. It's just because they are not just in the surroundings, like they are not in the environment, right? You cannot expect to continue to hang out, with the same people, right? Like, be in your close environment and expect those people to find you. Again, it's just the unfortunate thing about society, but if you're trying to get into a club, you have to figure out where those clubs hang out and then dig yourself into it. But and for me, I actually think it's an advantage, right? Because when you show up in the room, right, that is full of white male or white women or, just like people that don't look like you, and you have your own personality, you have your own branding, you actually stand out of the crowd. And for me, every single time, I always think that they pay attention to me because I don't look like everybody else in the room. And it's actually an advantage instead of like a disadvantage. And I use that to my advantage. And right now, as underrepresented founders or women or minorities, again, there's a lot of hype going around diversity and inclusion and all of that. Use that to your advantage, right? And I've done that. I don't care if somebody's like, like even if I'm the only female that you've invested in or that, I'm like, again, I wouldn't have had this opportunity if I was a Black woman. Like I have a lot of like speaking engagement that comes to me and like, hey, like we really want to diversify our panelists and blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, how much are you paying me, right? Like use the fact that you are a minority or like an underrepresented founder to your advantage. And again, and if you're really good at what you're doing and you have an amazing product, people will pay attention to you no matter what your background looks like. But just know that you have to be hanging out in the environments where they hang out. You have to find where are these people and how can I get them to pay attention to me?
Yes, ma'am. I think what you said was very important. I hope that's a great takeaway for anyone listening, to use who we are, our minority status, our Blackness, and our difference from the average to, feel we stand out. You stand out, so use it to your advantage and make something of it. And I think it's very important. I think a lot of people forget you have to change your network. Your network is your net worth. If all you know is people from your community and you're trying to raise from the Mark Cubans of the world, you have to find out where the Mark Cubans of the world are. And your network will help you. And man, I'm so grateful. I have so many more questions, but man, I'll let you go because I know you have a packed schedule. And let me just ask you this, just random. What's the life of a VC like? The daily life of a VC?
I think it really depends on my day. I like to think of my days as either like a meeting day or like a very like focused, I'm on my laptop, day. For my meeting days, again, like I mentioned earlier, I'm back to back. I take on average 10 to 12 calls. And and the way I schedule them, usually it's 30 minutes, but I always make sure that I have 30 minutes where I can write my notes. If I have to follow up via email, I just go ahead and follow up, and then I send that email out with an introduction or like whatever, right? Or I have to send a pitch deck. I do it in between those 30 minutes. So it's like back to back. And to be quite frank, by the end of the day, I'm usually exhausted. At the end of the day, just to chill down, it's like I'm responding to like the rest of the emails. Social media, maybe I'm, putting some content for my team. On the days that I'm not taking meetings back to back, again, the thing is like we live in a virtual world today, so everything is done on your computer. So on those days, I'm either creating content, I am reviewing decks. On average, so far, since we've launched, we've had a little bit over 500 applicants on the website, right? So sourcing those deals, reviewing the decks, and I'm also in the fundraising process as well. So researching LPs, following up with LPs and making sure that I get them on a phone call, that they've seen my deck, and all of that. And outside of the working, spectrum, in the morning, I do everything from like, I have a fixed schedule from like waking up, fixing my bed, going to the gym, having breakfast, and then like starting my day. I have this little scrappy planner that like
you just carry around with you.
Exactly, and it just has a lot of the things that I do on a regular basis. But it's not a fun and exciting, like I'm not like flying on a private jet, in the afternoon, and like, it's not that life. Especially with the pandemic right now, everything is on virtual. But it's something that I am so passionate about, especially because it has to do with the African continent. That's my passion. That's what makes me happy. So it gets very busy and it's crazy, and I have a headache and my eyes are swollen most of the time, but I love it. I wouldn't exchange it for anything else.
Man, I'm going to continue following your story and continue keeping in touch with you. You're very inspiring, and just thank you so much for taking the time to, just speak on my podcast. This is amazing, and I'm really grateful for you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Miss Eunice was very, very informational, inspirational, all of the above. I hope you had some takeaways from the video. Before I let you go today, I wanted to talk to you guys about one thing, and it's a theory that I've been studying up on called loss aversion. Loss aversion is a theory that we value not losing our money more than we value gaining money. The ratio is about 2 to 1. There's a more emphasis on not losing money than there is on gaining money. The ratio is about, to every dollar you lose, you need to make for every dollar you lose, you need to make $2 to offset that emotional void that you feel when you lose that $1. And how does this relate to entrepreneurship, you ask? Well, for all of you that, or any of you that are dreaming about starting a business, but you just can't get yourself to get it going, or you've been making excuses for years or for months and the dream is becoming deferred, I think you can really get going by making loss aversion work for you. If you truly believe that the idea that you have is the $1 million or $1 billion business idea that is going to change your family forever, then you have to know that for every day that you spend not acting, you're missing out, you're losing millions of dollars potentially for every day that you spend not acting on that idea. So I hope that motivates you to go ahead and get started today on chasing that dream. Get it in motion, one step at a time, one day at a time. Thank you so much. See you on the next episode.